Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to ZeroPoint Module 11, live with your host, the Objective Alpha. You can call me TheOA for short. Doesn't matter. I don't mind. TheOA is probably a bit easier. What we're going to do today is I decided I wanted to get it back to a live event. You know, something where you can come in, sit down, relax, chill out, and just listen to some speaking. So initially, I was going to actually open this up with just some questions regarding non-census for Asylum. But seeing as I can't hear them, I'm just going to present this on my own. So I'd like to open up and just say non-census is happening again. So this is going to be the second event. Obviously, the maiden non-census happened at the back end of October in 2023. Tickets are officially on sale for the 2024 show. And they are actually at noncensus.io. So there's there has been a date set. What they've done is we're going to run it for an extra day. So last year it ran over 3 days. This year it's going to run over 4 days. So it's going to run from November 7th to the 10th. And that is going to be back in Phoenix, Arizona, which is where we actually hosted Noncensus the last time. So if you don't know what Noncensus is, it is a conference. We have people up on the stage presenting ideas, and it is a conference that's around blockchain, privacy, and freedom. The tickets this year, unlike last year, they were priced in fiat currency. So you bought them, with US dollars. An interesting change this year, and it is very interesting in my opinion, because it's kind of what it should be. The tickets are priced in DERO. I know. Fantastic, right? Interesting. We're using crypto for what we want to do with it, which is, try and use it as a medium of exchange. So the interesting point to pricing the tickets for non-census in DERO is if you're still on the fiat currency, US dollar standard, well, right now, DERO is pretty cheap. With the price down of DERO, you can actually get a non-census ticket for quite a reasonable price. And obviously, if you think, we're down and out at the moment and you think the only way is up, now might be the best time to try and procure yourself a ticket to non-census. And if it's anything like last year, which it's going to be because we've learned a hell of a lot since last year, if it's anything like last year, it is going to be phenomenal. I really enjoyed myself last year. I think it was probably one of the best things I've ever done. Quest, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can indeed, sir. I can't hear the other two, but that's fine.
Oh, it is me. It's good.
How do you feel about non-census being booked now for November 7th to 10th?
I think you make a strong point about the value proposition, especially right now. So a smart person would probably buy 2 tickets, even if they're just going with there's one person, because it's going to be so much more valuable by the time the non-census actually comes around. So that's my plan and my strategy is I'm going to buy the tickets for the people that I'm bringing and then buy an extra one. And then I know I'll be able to at least leave that out on the open marketplace and exchange that for some DERO.
Is a really interesting idea, actually, isn't it? Then you can imagine probably by the time November comes around, 2024, there may actually be some on-chain DERO-based marketplace where you can make these kind of swaps.
Yeah, I hope there's a cap. Or I'm sorry, I hope there's not a cap to tickets to non-census because I'm buying all of them.
Well, I suppose that is an interesting question. I presume there is a cap, but those sort of finer details we'd have to get from Asylum.
I can chime in on that real quick if you can hear me.
Yeah.
So for now there is no cap, but as it gets later into the year, we're going to have to set the number of attendees. So for now, there's not a cap, but then as we get closer to the date, we'll have to establish how many tickets are going to be left for sale.
Right. Okay. No problem. And with regards to the venue, Cryptoid, were we thinking a similar or the same place?
So we still haven't decided 100% yet, but we are thinking we're going to go back for Wild Horse Pass again because they were really good to us there, and everybody seemed to enjoy it there. So I think we're going to shoot for it, but we'll let everybody know what's set in stone as soon as we have it.
No, fantastic. Yeah, I do realize it is still early, but it's good just to get the word out to everyone that tickets are currently on sale at nonsensus.io, and because they are priced in DERO, it may be an interesting time to get yourself a ticket if you were thinking of attending. Wild Horse Pass is where it was last year, and as Crypto had said, they treated us very well. It was a really nice venue. The upkeep was nice. The services and the on site were fantastic. I believe on the second or the third day, there was even a bar set up just outside of where we were. It was a really nice place, really well done. So I really do look forward to going back this year. Did you guys want to say anything else on the nonsensus front? Because beyond that, I'm gonna get going.
I don't have anything else to add. I think you're good to go.
Fantastic. Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, for this one, I'm going to work with Quest on this. So I was one of the presenters at last year's nonsensus. So I was second up on the first day, and basically all of the presentations were recorded, but my presentation, unfortunately, kind of got lost in the weeds a little bit. So what I'm going to kind of do here is I'm going to go over some talking points that come out of my presentation. I think it's interesting. Obviously, I made the presentation, so I would think that. But some of the things that I dug into are worth talking about. I'm going to slowly go over this. So when I presented this, obviously, this comes with a slideshow. I realized that this is audio only, you guys. So I'm going to be kind of converting this and doing this on the fly as to what's going to be best. We're going to be freestyling it, but we can do this. I'm going to kind of speak about my presentation, not presenting it as I would as if I was on stage, but kind of speaking about it almost from a third person perspective and just using the ideas in it as a discussion point. The actual whole idea behind my presentation was stablecoins, because it's a really popular word. It's a popular term. Everyone has an idea about stablecoins. And anytime you see the word stablecoin, it's generally it's one word and it's a name, and it's generally referring to something, which we all can kind of imagine in our heads what that is. So the point of my presentation was to almost define stable, what that meant, but at the same time relaying it, keeping it with crypto, blockchain, and kind of answering that weird question that we all have with stable coins, which is, yeah, it's a stable coin, but it's pegged to a fiat currency, which is most people, when you speak about people that are skeptical of stable coins, as I keep using the term and as we know them generally today, that's probably the number one thing you'll hear people complain about is, well, yeah, it's a stable coin, but it's just pegged to a fiat currency. And I agree. That's silly, because you're not really breaking away from the system if you're pegging your coin or your token to a fiat currency. But at the same point, you understand the purpose of a stable coin, which is if you're going to use it as, let's say, maybe a medium of exchange, volatility is a real concept. And, if you're going to use something to, store value or use as a medium of exchange, having low volatility is a reasonable thing to want. So, my presentation, I try and basically fuse everything in and actually give a solution on the back end. How can we break away from the fiat global Ponzi? That's what I try to do. So now initially the presentation started off, the title was called What is Stable? ? Because what is stable, everyone? How do you define, does stable mean pegged? Or is stable just generally a word to say something less volatile than something else would by definition be stable or more stable? So let's dive into it. I called it stable, coin, crypto and central banking. So when I set out to make this presentation, I needed to find a point of authority. So I went out there and I looked, and I wanted to see if people that me, you, and probably everyone here respect, if they've ever kind of commented on the ideas that are kind of involved with stablecoins, but generally central banking, etc. So I open up my presentation with 4 quotations. They're laid out, they're particular quotes, and they're laid out in a way that's going to kind of give you an idea of the direction that I try to take this presentation. Because this has been building for a long time. So my first quote that I want to go over for you guys is from Friedrich Hayek. And it's from an interview that he did back in 1984. So this is a prominent Austrian economist. We're probably all familiar with him. Now, just keep in mind that these quotes, I'm presenting them in the vein of stablecoins. So the quote goes, "I don't believe that we should ever have good money again before we take the thing out of the hands of government. We can't take them, the banking system, violently out of the hands of government. All we can do is, by some sly air under God's wit, introduce something they can't stop. It is true," so then this is from the same interview a bit later. "It is true that the price level should be determined by the quantity or the supply of money. But we never know what the quantity of money is in this sense." And here I believe he's referring to the modern fiat money system. There's so many different categories of, air quotes, money that we don't actually know what the true supply is. So he continues on, "I think the rule ought to be that whoever issues the money must adapt the quantity so that the price level will remain stable." So you can kind of see where he's kind of getting at, where, if you're trying to use a currency or a money, you do want it to be stable. So I don't think the overarching idea of a stable coin is necessarily bad. I'd say that maybe the perception of them has been taken away, and that's kind of important. I'm just going to continue on here to my second quote. So now this quote comes from Milton Friedman in his writing, "Do We Need Central Banks?" And this is from 1994. So alternatively, we could replace the Federal Reserve System by a computer and have a computer calculate month by month how much currency has to be printed in order to achieve a steady rate. Personally, I believe they would be far superior to a central bank, but I have no great hopes that central banks will willingly be replaced by computers. So you can kind of see where this is going, you guys. You want to take the money out of the hands of government, and ideally you want to try and replace it by a computer, because a computer can just be programmed to a set of rules, and it kind of takes away that trust in humans, right?
And money is a very powerful means of control, right?
Exactly. It's what probably has most of us here and all of us in the rat race.
Exactly.
Whether you like to think of it or not, you probably are controlled by money in some way. And that money is upstream controlled by humans, other humans. That's the current system right now. And then if you look around, look at the state we're in. So, you can really see what Friedman and Hayek were talking about. Take the money that we use out of the hands of government or other people, replace it by a computer. Obviously, that wasn't really possible in, the early 90s and late 80s. So naturally, you guys, you can probably see where we're going with this. My next quote I pull from someone you all may know, Satoshi Nakamoto. So I got this out of the Book of Satoshi by Paul Champagne. Right, here we go. So indeed, there is nobody to act. So he's talking about Bitcoin here. Indeed, there is nobody to act as central bank or Federal Reserve to adjust the money supply as the population of users grows. Demand. That would have required a trusted party to determine the value, because I do not know of a way for software to know the real-world value of things. If there was some clever way, or if we wanted to trust someone to actively manage the money supply, the rules could have been programmed for that. In this sense, Bitcoin, more typical of a precious metal. Instead of the supply changing to keep the value the same, the supply is predetermined and the value changes. So this is Satoshi himself almost likening, from a price and supply and demand perspective, he's likening Bitcoin to a precious metal. where, precious metals, the supply is either fixed or determinable, and the demand fluctuates, which means that the price fluctuates a lot. But so just sum up this one real quick. Look, so you can see what we're thinking here is, we then created, the first cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, but even supply and demand and these kind of things, price stability were on the mind. Was on the mind of Satoshi. Right, so I'm just going to close up this round of quotes here with the final quote that I opened up my presentation with you guys. Now, this quote's from Nick Szabo, because it's going to be probably the final piece in this almost progression I've laid out from the minds of Hayek and Friedman to the actual, following through. So this is back in 1994. Nick Szabo's writing on smart contracts. A smart contract is a computerized transaction protocol that executes the terms of a contract. The general objectives of smart contract design are to satisfy contractual conditions, minimize exceptions, both malicious and accidental, and minimize the need for trusted intermediaries. See, we're really closing that loop now from the previous quote. The consequences of smart contract design on contract law and economics have been little explored, and the opportunities for creating new kinds of businesses and social institutions based on smart contracts are vast but little explored. So what I'm trying to kind of look at here is these are lofty goals, you guys. Hayek and Friedman were dreaming of an alternative monetary system without government oversight. Trust. Friedman going so far as to say a computer of some sort could do it. Can you imagine how crazy that would have been? Satoshi made the foundations of that alternative system, creating Bitcoin. But gas coins, like Bitcoin, or even DERO, have a fixed supply, like a commodity, a precious metal. Even Satoshi was stumped on how to control supply without trusting someone, let alone how a software could know the value of a thing. Because, generally these softwares, these blockchains, they're actually closed systems. Know what's outside of it unless someone inputs that information. So, and then after Bitcoin, then came smart contracts dreamed up by Nick Szabo. What's the law? Murphy's Law. If something is possible, time will bring it to life, you guys. And I think, for you guys here listening, when you know you're right about a thing, you just have to stay relaxed, stay calm, and give it some time. And then that will come around. So, this is how I open up the presentation, you guys. I want to weave together central banking, money, and blockchain and show you the end result. Now, you have to think DERO on top of Bitcoin and then smart contracts, which came with Ethereum, is the next natural progression because of what they were lacking. And if we're talking about creating money or a usable currency, what are they lacking, guys? Well, they're lacking privacy or fungibility. So, Quest or Joshy, how do you feel about sort of this progression from ideas from Hayek, Friedman to Bitcoin to smart contracts kind of bringing the possibility of creating automated protocols? Like, I think it's really cool. Like when I found these quotes from like Hayek and Friedman and, seeing what they're saying and then thinking about where we are now with DERO kind of being better than being a progression on previous iterations. We now can actually make a real, private, fungible, digital currency with all the attributes of cash.
Yeah, so obviously you go back, you take a look back at the gold standard, which, there's different opinions on the gold standard, whether it worked or whether it didn't. But effectively, gold standard still had a centralized authority, if you like. So, the central bank in London stores a lot of the gold reserves. A lot of people moved away from that to it being government backed. As we know that, that just turned into a money printer. But effectively, putting the blockchain itself, it takes away that central authority and there's no vision of that. And with fiat currency, the way it's going, there was a guy called Nick Barashev, I believe it was. They said there's sort of 5 stages to fiat currency when it moves from the gold standard. So you've got your stage 1, which is the optimism euphoria stage. So everyone can feel the impact of the fiat currency. And then your second stage would be the currency creation process. So it's almost effectively clearing the debt, so introducing the new currencies and then clearing the debt. And then stage 3 is where it's like they call it the gambling stage, so it's excessive liquidity in the market. And then as you go through that, you start to then get to a situation where we are now. So coming towards the end of the fiat life cycle. So as you can see, growth is starting to really slow down, especially in the Western world. You see it daily in the news.
Mm-hmm.
And then it ultimately leads to hyperinflation. And that is predominantly down to a central authority being able to effectively print money. They've got an infinite source. They can print it because it's not backed against anything. So this is sort of where the gold standard was a lot better. But you put this back into the blockchain where there's a limited supply of coins and it's completely private. There's no central authority. It's the breeding ground for a perfect backed currency.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I do like that you brought up the gold standard because because let's kind of think about the gold standard in a kind of another way, which is what does the gold standard actually do, and like why did the governments want to take you off the gold standard?
It was actual scarcity.
Exactly. So and to a central banker, it means that their ability to control the supply of a thing was arrested, right? Because it could only print as much.
Yeah, they didn't have godlike powers with the gold standard.
Yeah, that's right. So it's a really interesting kind of point to think about, where it's a bit bold, but if you want to say that control is the end goal, with some kind of financial control, you'd have to have full control of the supply. And if you're on a commodity-backed currency, you don't have that. It's actually not in your hand.
The market. Yep.
Exactly. So,
why would control freaks want to have anything outside of them have any type of influence on how they control things, right?
Exactly. Cryptoid, were you going to pipe up?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to add something. Since you mentioned Nick Szabo and fungibility at the same time earlier, I know it's kind of bringing it back, but that's part of the reason that the gold standard existed as well. Fungibility, a lot of people will associate the term fungibility with privacy, but really what fungibility is 1 unit of something is equal to 1 unit of something at all times. And Nick Szabo has a great blog on Unenumerated. He has an article that he wrote, or a blog that he wrote, called Shelling Out: The Origins of Money. And he goes through basically the history of money and what has been used as money in the past, and explains that concept in a way that I haven't seen anybody explain any better. And I think if anybody's really interested on kind of where the gold standard came from on a deeper level, you really should read that, because it talks about how humans started with basically seashells as the oldest known money, because it was a rare resource that could be used, and bigger seashells were more rare, so they were worth more, etc. But I'm just a big fan of Szabo, so I just wanted everybody to go check that out if they have the time.
Yeah, for sure. I think everyone here probably respects old Nick Szabo. So either way, we'll continue on a little bit down the road. So as I kind of go through my presentation, you can kind of see the context that I'm trying to build. Now, how am I kind of link this to stablecoins? Well, first I'm gonna stop real quick, you guys, and just have a quick word on the law of supply and demand, because it's important to actually understand this if we want to understand where we're going. We want to actually understand what central banks do, which is control supply. Why do they control supply? You see, the relationship of supply and demand affects the price of a thing. Price will be where the current equilibrium is found between supply and demand, where if you put it on a graph, it would be where the lines intersect. So why is Bitcoin and DERO like a commodity or a precious metal? It's due to their fixed or determinable supply. And why are commodities generally more volatile, you guys? It's due to that fixed or determinable supply where the demand varies. Now, the actual law with regards to supply and demand is, the prices fall if the supply increases, prices rise if supply decreases, whilst keeping demand constant. So you can see then, if price is the quantification of supply and demand, that we can actually affect the price of a thing by affecting the supply of the thing. And you can imagine between affecting supply and demand, it's more reasonable to be able to affect the supply of the thing than affect the demand, which in these instances is effectively the minds of the people, of humans, which that can kind of tangent off into a whole thing on its own. But if we're just talking literally and technically, it's more reasonable to affect the supply of a currency than to try and affect the demand for that currency. So this is kind of this is effectively what central banks try to do. And it is a real thing, the supply control is, it is an art, a skill, there's a lot to it. So let's look at central bank. The central banking, it's a question of controlling supply to counteract demand to affect price. Keep price stable, predictable, which is less volatile against a reference point, which is more usable day to day. Now, as we just went over, you guys, a national currency used to kind of be created or minted under a commodity standard, as in, gold, or you go back further into China, silver. So what we can actually see here is the function is essentially to take in something of agreed upon value and then loan out the currency from that value that you're taking in. And then this loan can naturally have an interest rate attached to it. So you can kind of see, so if you want to control the supply of a currency, you would raise or lower the cost of the loan, and they will bring the currency back to your window, aka reduce supply, or come to you with more commodities and you loan them more currency, aka increased supply, which would inevitably find its way onto the open market, get sold, and then bring the price down. So this time-proven method to control supply by setting of interest rates, you can effectively, what we're doing here is by setting interest rates, we're incentivizing human behavior, right? And what better incentive of human behavior is there than monetary gain or loss?
Besides food, that's the primary one.
There you go. So, you can kind of see the levers that's trying to be pulled here. So now if we were to kind of look at crypto, like where does crypto kind of fall in this kind of workings of a central banking? Well, it would probably be more the valuable asset, the kind of the valuable commodity-esque, precious metal-esque thing that you bring to the window, you see? But unfortunately, with all of this lovely central banking, which is just a process, you guys, right? Unfortunately, it's humans who meet and decide how to affect the supply of a national currency by setting an interest rate based on some data, right? Fallible, subversible, right? If central banking is just a process to control supply in a kind of way, well, then that would break down if it's in the hands of humans, right? That's the vector, that's the attack vector. If we kind of bring this, to the digital, right? You want to target something, you target the men and women in control of it. Lovely. So I'm hoping I'm kind of setting this up for you guys to kind of see where we are leading with this presentation. So just a quick touch on, money. As Cryptoid kind of pointed out, money is basically just something that's kind of agreed amongst a group of humans as kind of agreed upon value, and that with kind of certain attributes. So historically, this has been bestowed upon things with a limited, determinable, or fixed supply. That's kind of one of the linking attributes of money through history, like with shells, right? Obviously, gold, silver being prime examples. The attributes of money, as coined, believe in Man, Economy, and State by Murray Rothbard, is durability, portability, divisibility, fungibility, scarcity, and acceptability. Now, fungibility is a real important one here because this is kind of where DERO actually makes this all possible. And as Cryptoid said, there is a difference between fungibility and privacy. They're not mutually exclusive, as in fungibility is just one unit equaling one other unit. Now, on a blockchain ledger, if those units are transparent, they are censorable, as in it's not always possible to have one unit equal one other unit with currencies such as Bitcoin. So, fungibility is basically an attribute that comes from sound privacy. So let's try and link this now in with crypto and blockchain. So, what is blockchain exactly? It's just a distributed computer protocol that effectively it survives by providing a service to humans from a real basic high level, you guys. I'm looking at blockchain and crypto. What is it from the most basic level? It's a distributed computer protocol. People run nodes on their computers. How does it survive and how does it protect itself if it's just a computer protocol? Well, it provides that service of what is the actual service of a blockchain? Well, it is a fixed and determinable supply of something that is out of the hands of humans. But you see how it creates this feedback loop because it's only out of the hands of humans by kind of providing a service. So it captures that value in a native gas coin and uses it to reward other humans to keep it secure via providing hash rate to keep it secure from other nefarious humans who would attack the system. This creates a positive feedback loop on price or demand and hash rate security that maintains as long as the service it provides is considered valuable by the humans that use it. So it's incentive, you guys. Everything we're trying to do here, because we're working with closed systems, and that closed system is a blockchain, it has no choice but to get humans to kind of do everything for it. It relies on humans for its security. As we delve into smart contracts, it's going to rely on humans to kind of bring outside data onto the blockchain. Everything revolves around us, you guys, humans, right? And everything is really just how you are incentivized to do a thing. Really basic, keeping it really simple, you guys. But just think about that because it is really important. It's all really incentive. And what incentivizes you? The whole incentive around this entire thing really is monetary gain. So it's a protocol that does not rely on a single human to survive and secures itself. So it's crypto money. Context today in 2023 is different than the past. Intrinsic value today can be no central authority because in 2023 or 2024, we've got problems we've got trust issues and authority issues, which we did historically, but let's just look at our actual recent history. So what was important then in an analog world, right? And that's another key point to push into this is we're talking about digital. So what was important then in an analog world is on top of what's important now, right? In my opinion, it's added to what's important because the proliferation of the digital has changed everything. How we live, how we act. Me personally, you guys, since coming into computers, it's changed me. I never used to look at screens as much as I do now, but now I do. And I can actually tell you it's had physiological effects on me. But at the same point, I'm here, right? I'm here with all of you right now, dedicated to this thing because no matter what I think about it, there's no getting away from the digital. This is quite clearly where we're going. And I'm comfortable with that. So crypto has brought new value by way of almost recreating tangible money attributes digitally. And now you could almost pretty much say that DERO has brought new value, right? Now, obviously, we all stand on the shoulders of giants, you guys, and we all got here because of those that came before us. But that's also not to disregard the fact that DERO is literally the only thing that's going to make all of this possible currently in the current landscape. So, we've recreated tangible money attributes digitally whilst also keeping it with no central authority. You can securely custody your assets yourself, put them in a smart contract, no banks.
I just wanted to add something to that too. The way that assets are handled, like on DERO versus like other blockchains as well, like tokens, for example. Even on other blockchains, tokens still remain in the contract. When the tokens are actually emitted on DERO, they're in your wallet. They're now yours, and then can move wallet to wallet. So that's even expanding upon what you were just talking about. I just wanted to add that detail for people who don't know that.
Yeah, no, that is critical because where we're obviously going with this is towards the stablecoin idea. Now, stablecoins are obviously possible because of smart contracts, and we know of stablecoins on Ethereum and all these other blockchains, etc. And none of them have what crypto had just said about, which is truly, we say stable coin as well, but they're technically stable tokens. So on DERO, when you have a token, it truly is in your wallet, and only you know that, and only you can control it. If we're talking about creating currency, that's a pretty major attribute. And that's besides the fact that your wallet is private, so nobody can even look in it. So if you think about this, it's just on this point alone, it's a twofold hit that you're taking using these transparent chains like Ethereum. Not only can everyone look in your wallet and they know what's in there anyways, but the tokens you actually hold in your wallet, you are not necessarily always in sole control of them, which is a scary thing. If a smart contract, gets deleted or is gone, it's possible that your token can be too. That's crazy. Like, if we're talking realistic, that is realistically just not what you want. How are you going to build the new world on that?
If I can add to the realistic part too, a lot of people don't seem to understand. It seems like something simple, but it's really not. But what you have when you have your own asset in your own wallet that nobody can see is you really just created parity with the real world digitally. It's not that you've created some crazy technology to be able to do something that's never been done before as far as humans understand. You've just created technology that matches having some dollar bills in your wallet or some pounds in your wallet, right?
So just thinking the sort of wider high level view on stable coins that we've currently got in the market. So you've got your BNB BUSD or FUSD, for example. So it's probably more of an open question is how do the current stable coins that we've got in the crypto market at the moment differ to the Bretton Woods system that collapsed in the 1970s? How different are they? Because effectively, like Crypto was saying, you've created a digital asset that is linked to a price of an external force. So similar to the Bretton Woods agreement, that was the US dollar was valued on the price of gold. So it's very similar to how stable coins are at the moment. So I suppose two questions really. How does that differ to the Bretton Woods system? And in your opinion, what is the best recipe for creating the perfect stable coin? If you've got that answer, it's probably more of an open question. Maybe open up to the floor. What is the perfect stable coin on DERO?
Yes, for sure. So in my opinion, most of these stable coins that you mentioned, and we're going to get to this real quickly here, they all have an attribute that matches, right? And this is going to be the issue that Josh is kind of aiming towards, is they're all pegged to a currency, an existing national fiat currency. How is that any different? If you're effectively creating a synthetic pegged representation of the thing that you were trying to break away from. This is a major idea, and this is kind of definitely the way I am going with this, Joshy. So I would love to answer your question. And the only reason I'm able to do this and make this is because of DERO and because of the drawbacks that we just went over with Ethereum. Anything you build on Ethereum it's just not going to be realistically usable. It's crazy. Everyone can see into everyone's wallet. So let's start to weave these ideas together then. OA, where are you going with this? Come on, let's bring these in. Do these, so let's start to weave these ideas. Do these cryptos have their drawbacks? Yes. Like gold in the old days, not so much in portability or divisibility, but volatility, which kind of, is acceptability. And particularly Bitcoin and all these other currencies lack in true fungibility. Maybe not now, but in the future, there will be mempool censorship and, good luck getting your tainted UTXO, actually added into a block. These kind of ideas. This is what we mean when, we're saying a transparent ledger isn't always good. So what is the natural next step to build on from blockchain and the commodity-esque crypto it supports? Supply control, right? Creating a less volatile currency out of this sound money. I think it's sound money, these cryptocurrencies, DERO. Like days past, where national currency was backed by valuable gold or silver, major infliction of that being the supply is governed by this. So we add in smart contracts. You guys bring all this money. It can be crypto or DERO. Crypto, it can replace trust in humans via the service incentive loop. Central banking, it can be automated. So in my opinion, you guys, we can now build what Hayek and Friedman dreamed about, having no central authority in our monetary system by way of a computer replacing the function of a central bank. This does not mean replacing DERO or Bitcoin. No, this means using it for what it is, money. Let's make currency real again. You see, that's a little thing I just put in my presentation. See, because I do kind of, and you probably notice as well, I do kind of draw like a line like money and currency. So I think currency is made out of money, but the definitions on these things is extremely ambiguous, you guys, in my opinion, on purpose, because they don't actually want anyone figuring all this stuff out. Automated, trustless, central banking backed with hard money on the blockchain. So giving in an asset to create another one sounds like something we have heard before. They call them stablecoins, you guys. So what are stablecoins? Stablecoins are cryptocurrency whose value is pegged to that of another currency. That's Investopedia's definition. Coinbase, they're going to be better, you guys. A stablecoin is a digital currency that is pegged to a stable reserve asset like the US dollar. Hold on. Britannica, you've got our back. Tell me what a stablecoin is. A stablecoin is a cryptocurrency, yeah, that aims to maintain price stability, yeah, by pegging its monetary value to a given fiat currency. Well, Forbes, they love money. Forbes is correct. What are stablecoins? Forbes, tell me. Stablecoins are a type of cryptocurrency, yeah, designed to maintain a stable price, yeah, over time, yeah, pegged to the value of an underlying asset, like the US dollar. Guys, this can't be what stablecoins are. We can't be pegging. We can't be like deriving the price of the thing from the fiat currency that we're trying to get away from. But at the same point, we can see that this whole art of central banking is an actual thing and supply control is a real thing. How can we reconcile all this? Well, we can reconcile it in the same way that, Bitcoin was created, DERO was created. We can reconcile it with math. So I'm probably getting a little bit ahead of myself, but effectively, when we're talking about stablecoins, we mean one stablecoin equals $1 US of value. So there's two aspects to this, right? The US dollar is the thing that is pegged to, but also there's another way we use the US dollar, which is actually as the primary reference to how we value, right? Everything is priced kind of in dollars. Now, reference is a key point here because, you need reference to be able to quantify a thing, right? So we're gonna actually start to get into stablecoins now, you guys. So I've presented a pretty big issue, which is all of our stablecoins are pegged 1-to-1 with US dollar, literally, or euro. You're starting to see some euro-backed stablecoins, but it's all just ludicrous, ultimately. But the solution is not simple. So we have two types of stablecoins generally, you guys. We've got centralized stablecoins, and we'll call them decentralized stablecoins. The centralized stablecoins are ones that you're all familiar with, like USDT, USDC, BUSD. These are centralized and they're generally services. So they're legal companies that just back their stablecoin 1-to-1 with US dollars or US dollars derived instruments. But your security in this comes by the fact that these are legal entities that are providing this service. So this is another important point, right? So effectively your security is being given to you by the government, right? And that's safe to you, right? I will use your stable coin because I know if you rug me, if you do anything bad, I can just sue you legally in a courtroom because you're a legal entity under the jurisdiction of my government. That's great, and that's providing a service, and that's the ideas of service. Is a service or where you have to place trust in a human is backstopped by government. How does that work when we're trying to get away from government? Obviously it doesn't. So what do we have then? We have the other type of stablecoin, decentralized stablecoin. Now these ones you're going to have heard of, DAI. That's the first stablecoin. My opinion is the best stablecoin, but it got subverted along the way. LUSD. Now these are decentralized. What does that mean, OA? Well, it means that they're actually backed with cryptocurrency. So someone's gone to the window, the central bank, the currency issuer, and someone's actually given them a Bitcoin or an Ethereum in place of gold and then created a stable coin off of that. Well, that's interesting. So it's an automatic function on the blockchain made possible by a smart contract. It will keep the peg to your reference, your US dollar, so long as the actual stability mechanism itself can balance the supply and the demand. What's the security in a decentralized stablecoin? And so we went over centralized. Your security is effectively the fact that it's backed by a legal organization and you can sue it in your government's courtroom. What backs a decentralized stablecoin? What's the actual security there? Well, the people that are basically what keeps a decentralized stablecoin stable is arbitrage, right? And it's the arbitrage value weighted against the risk of the protocol, right? Because these are protocols, you don't know if it's going to fail. You don't know if it's going to work as intended or not. So that's a risk that you actually have to, take on. And then is the value you're getting back by arbitraging the stablecoin back to its price that it's supposed to be, $1, is that going to be worth you doing that against the risk of you using a smart contract? But that's the system. That's how it works. Incentive, right? Arbitrage is the incentive. But that way we can have decentralized or distributed stablecoins. This is fantastic, you guys. So, and we've got this already. So we actually do have with DAI, fully automated stablecoins, except there's major issues. They're all pegged to $1. Now, I'm gassing you guys, but this is really interesting to me. I made a whole presentation on it, so I don't really mind talking about this. But I'm gonna speed it up a little bit from here, because this idea that I'm going to try and present to you is going to be difficult being audio only, but we're going to go for it. So these, we're just going to focus on decentralized stablecoins. So basically they're protocols, and in my opinion, the first stablecoin, which is DAI, well, it's currently the longest standing stablecoin. So it's kind of like a time-proven protocol to keep stability. We'll just call it a stability mechanism, because that's all these decentralized stablecoins are. They're just ways to maintain supply. Some of them work better than others. Why does DAI work so well? Well, in my opinion, DAI works so well because it functions exactly like a central bank. It takes assets in and loans out a currency off of that asset. It's a time-proven mechanism. It's just a protocol. It's just a mechanism. It's just a way to control supply, right? And what we've done with DAI is we've taken the human bit out of it. So that's fantastic. But they've subbed in kind of that fallacy of, having trust in humans, but then they've kind of substituted it with being pegged to $1. So, we're kind of feeling a bit shorted here, where we want stable coins. We'd like something a bit less volatile, but at the same point, we don't really see the point in pegging to a fiat currency. So what do you do if you don't want to peg to a fiat currency? Well, you guys, it's really simple. You don't have a peg. An issue with these modern stablecoins is the actual $1 peg itself, because having a fixed peg on a currency like this, it basically creates stress on the stability mechanism. Because sometimes the incentive is not enough to keep to its peg. Now, if we say $1 is the target price, right? And let's say there's an arbitrage opportunity in there of 4%. Sometimes that 4% isn't enough. Sometimes, let's say the target price of a stablecoin goes to $1.05. That's 5% over its stated price that it wants to be at, which is $1. There are times where that 5% is not enough to incentivize more supply to be created and bring the price back down. So basically, you guys, to kind of get to the point that I'm trying to make with all of this, is that you can, if you take away the peg to $1, what you can actually do is you can then, in this instance, you can lower the target price to, let's say, from $1 to 98 cents. Then you add that to where the price is at currently at $1.05. That's now a 7% arbitrage opportunity. That's how you increase the incentive, because the only thing you're doing here is just kind of increasing the arbitrage, which is the incentive. Now, using math via this is going to be really difficult for me to kind of try and visualize to you guys. But if you can take away the peg, you can use a mathematic formula, such as a PID controller, which is it's basically just a way to for something to control itself, you'll be able to take the target price away from a $1 peg and allow that target to then float. And it will be completely slave to market forces. Now, this actually is happening currently. So, right, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here, you guys. So, the example that I've just kind of portrayed to you, where you actually lower the target price, so you bring your peg effectively from $1 down to 98 cents. What that is that effectively works out to be a negative interest rate. So you're taking money out of the pocket of people that are holding the currency. So a week ago, their currency was valued at $1. Well, now the peg of their currency in their pocket is being brought down to 98 cents. So they've effectively just lost 2%. But where is that percentage going, right? You can't create money out of nothing. You can't create value out of thin air, right? So this problem would normally be solved by government in a fiat currency system by printing more money, and then you would sell it on the open market where the price of the stablecoin is at $1.05, and obviously you increase the supply, you'll naturally bring the price back down to its target of $1. But obviously we're not working in a fiat system here. We're working in a traditional kind of commodity-backed standard where in order to increase supply, you need people to bring more commodities to you or more crypto to you. And the only way you can do that is by increasing their incentive. But the only way you can increase their incentive, because you can't create value out of thin air, you need to take it from the people that hold the currency in their pocket. This, ladies and gentlemen, is called a negative interest rate for the holders, right? But what it does is it allows supply to be created because more of the arbitrageurs, the people that want to sell the stablecoin on the open market and bring the price back down to its target, they're more incentivized to do that whilst not creating money out of thin air, right? Negative interest rate. It's like a mythical beast. Nobody likes it. Nobody wants to see it, but it's required. So in the context of this presentation, you guys, a negative interest rate is effectively charging interest to someone for holding an asset, the stablecoin. There are two ways to implement a negative interest rate, you guys. And you're gonna when I present this, you're gonna think of another stablecoin that's tried this, right? So there are two ways to implement a negative interest rate. Number one is actually having the balances decrease in the holder's wallet over time, right? Now, this is that kind of elastic supply, ample forth stablecoin. So you decrease the supply by literally decreasing the supply. You increase the supply by literally increasing the supply of the asset in the wallet. Obviously, if you're on a blockchain that can't do that, then that's not going to be possible. The second way is to have a floating target price that can drop over time. These are the only two ways to actually implement a negative interest rate. You need to take money from people holding the currency, you guys. A negative interest rate is you're trying to get people to sell instead of hoard, right? But obviously, it's a terrible thing to try and do that. That's why in reality, we don't really see negative interest rates in this fiat system. But in reality, a negative interest rate is just natural and it's needed to create a real currency. And in order to create a real currency, you can't print money out of thin air. You need to take from one to give to the other. So, the two ways to implement a negative interest rate, which is, actually having the balances decrease in the wallet over time. So you have 10 coins in your wallet and now you have 9 the week following. This is if you're trying to build with a stable coin that's built like this, it's a bad developer experience where receiving N coins does not mean that you necessarily have N coins to use later, not to mention just the really strange idea of having N coins in your wallet and coming back to less at a later date. So that kind of leaves naturally having a floating target price. So the price of the asset itself can drop over time. Now, this has a user experience drawback, where in crypto, we're used to a coin cleanly pegging to $1. This could and would deviate. But this is natural, you guys, because of the market. This is an open, free market, right? If we want working natural systems, we need to be open to things like this. Everything can't just grow forever. You need to be able to implement negative, right? If we're talking realistic. So the overarching idea of negative interest rate is to take from the demand side and give to the supply side, encouraging supply to increase and vice versa. See, because the actual difficult thing is to bring the price of a currency down when it starts to go up, believe it or not. That's it's easy to, if a price drops, it's a lot easier to kind of bring it back up because it just means buying it on the open market. But try creating supply to sell on an open market when you have so much demand.
That raises a good point there, Alpha. So I know you mentioned it's difficult for negative interest rates to incentivize that, but I suppose one key area of that is lending. So, take, for example, $6,000 loan, 6,000 DERO loan, for example. If you can then repay that loan for less, there's your incentive.
Exactly. And it's so simple. It's genius, right? This is effectively, in my opinion, this is the art of central banking. This is supply control. So going back to what we were saying earlier, yeah, loans is the way to do that. Because what better way to incentivize someone to do a thing than monetary gain or loss? So it really is natural, I suppose, is one of the overarching ideas I'm trying to get across is that central banking isn't some kind of like icky, horrible thing. No, central banking is just a way to do a thing. Yes, the icky, horrible thing is the humans in control because they're fallible, they're subversible, but, I don't, and I'm trying to do the same thing for the idea of a stable coin as well. It's just a way to do a thing. So if we can kind of tweak how we do it, we can probably create something that we're all happy with. But yeah, so a negative interest rate really just aims to, as Josh has said, just create supply. It's aiming to increase incentive to a threshold, a tipping point where, let's say, take Joshy, for example. He sat there, he's like, I'm holding these stable coins. I can see the price of the stable coin is 5% over where it's aiming to be, 5%, but that's not really enough for me to, I'd rather just hold. It's 5%. I don't know if it's not going to be worth it. Well, if that 5% turns to 7%, this is the open free market, you guys. This is supply and demand. The thing just notches and increases until someone's willing to take the dive. And so when you take away the peg and you're allowed to lower the value of an asset, someone will eventually sell because you're going to be sat there like, oh, well, the value of my bloody, my peg coin, my stable coin here is going down. What the hell? But I can see the price is up there. So you know what? It just keeps going down. I'm going to sell. Boom. The protocols just did exactly what it wanted you to do. It's creating supply on the open market, and it kept lowering the price until it made the supply happen on the open market. This is central banking, you guys. But real central banking of hard asset. And in order to have real central banking of hard fixed supplied assets, you have to be able to implement a negative interest rate. So this is kind of where I'm going. So, we're getting crazy now, OA. Calm down. Okay. We can see the setting of an interest rate by way of changing target price on a non-pegged asset is a lovely way to create stronger incentive, therefore control supply. That is done today by humans and central banks, they decide. How on earth, OA, do you propose the human mind, the thing that can set the interest rate based on market forces, how do you propose that is replaced? Well, how do they make those decisions? They make those decisions based on some data points. Considering market forces, how to keep a thing in balance. Well, if we go back to what Milton Friedman said, couldn't we create a computer program with these parameters, let's say? And could we let a computer program do that? Yes, we can, you guys. Yes, we can. So my presentation from here kind of moves on to something called control theory. We can control things. And I'm here to tell you guys that we can create a currency that is not pegged to $1, that uses some mathematics and control theory, and it can basically float, and it will set its own rate. And this can be done in a smart contract. Now, the system, the control mechanism that's been proven so far to be most suitable to this is what's called a PID controller. So basically, this concept, this PID controller comes out of what's called control theory. And this concept found origins with what's called the centrifugal governor. It goes all the way back, invented in the 17th century as a way to control a millstone gap to compensate for varying flows of grain, right? But that's a brilliant example as to what a stablecoin and how you can use a controller to control the price. Because as price deviate, that can be a data point or a protocol, controlling protocol. So a PID controller can actually be implemented to set a price of a thing. Now, as the price deviates, that's what's called an error rate. As the price deviates from the target price, aka the target price is $1, it goes up to $1.05. That rate can obviously be measured. And then along with a couple more attributes, we can actually create a mathematic controller that can float. Now, there's no, this is really serious. It sounds simple, but this idea that I've just kind of tried to put across to you guys is very severe, because if you think about it, that kind of peg to the fiat currencies that we use, the stable coins, is almost like the last link to the existing financial system. And if we find a way to drop that peg and make our own low volatile currency based on something like DERO, for me, that's the end game, you guys. We're creating a currency out of, in my opinion, sound money. We're doing central banking without humans, without trust in humans, and without reliance or pegging to the traditional fiat system. This is major, and this is possible. So I'm slowly going to wrap this up. I would like, if you guys would like to do some homework, there is actually a working programmed PI controller that's been running now for over 2 years. Basically, there is a floating currency that's currently built on Ethereum, and this is just it's going to be a real nice proof of concept. And if you're interested in this, I would implore all of you to kind of look towards it. There is a lot of content. It does get quite deep, but this is, in my opinion, a very deep subject. The idea of stable coins is major. And basically, in over 2 years, this controller has worked. The actual currency itself is called RAI, R-A-I, and there's plenty of documentation around it, you guys. For me, it's a major proof of concept, and that this idea is only truly realistically made possible with and on DERO. But I think there is a path, you guys. There is a path towards us cutting all links to authority and creating a closed system that's, secure from attack, that incentivizes humans to kind of do everything it needs to do. And I think this is kind of the point of my entire presentation is we're nearly there, you guys. We're getting there. We can be completely unlinked. So a non-pegged floating stable token, that's a real stable coin. So I suppose the other aspect you might be thinking is it needs other information, right? These stable coins, they need price information. This is where in what I call smart contract platform primitives kind of come in. This is why a decentralized exchange like an AMM or an order book is a very important tool. Not just for the fact that it enables us to swap assets amongst ourselves, but actually because it creates on-chain data, right? It creates price data. To have a fully trustless AMM or an order book style exchange with a nice API, we're creating on-chain data. So, in my opinion, I'll always say that a stablecoin is a real closed stablecoin that's on DERO is downstream from a functional automated market maker or some kind of exchange where we can get on-chain data. But this is it, you guys. We're observing, this can be real, legit supply control. Stability was never meant to be a tight peg. We can have stability in a real open free market, backed with, in my opinion, sovereign money controlled by no central entity. unlike the other national currencies, this is stability that relies not on man, but on mathematics, you guys. This is what we're all here for. This is crypto. We must get our way out of the infinite money debt printing slave system. This is the Austrian economist's dream, you guys. No central control. This is just the start. This kind of shit really piques my interest, right? I made a whole presentation on this, you guys. I went up on stage and I did it in front of people because we're actually here, right? Everything I presented to you has been like built and working and functional and been proven now for, like I said, over a few years. It's not mean to say it's in its final form because these PID controllers, they need tweaking, you know, this is control theory. This is, you know, but it's all there, you guys. Volatility controlled currency seems like something people want in their day-to-day life. So it's okay to say we want something a bit less volatile. It doesn't mean we have to throw away the DEROs or the Bitcoins. No, central banking inherently is just a process to do a thing, you guys. If it is hijacked and used by bad people to affect things for their own gain at our cost, it is our duty to wrestle back control, take the trust back, distribute it. The digital age is upon us, and it can go both ways, for it is just a tool, you guys. This tool is shaping up to be something that can really help us gain back our freedom, autonomy, and independence. If you had ideas, reservations, or general sadness around the stablecoin space, I hope to have brought some hope, because it really is just subversion. So we're just talking about basic protocols underneath it all. It makes sense that we start with money and the intricate web it weaves to ensnare us. So no wonder we are all here around DERO, the only fully encrypted blockchain, from the peer-to-peer network to the transactions, with the ability of automatic trustless code execution we call smart contracts. And that will allow us to bring all of these ideas to life, in my opinion, you guys. So that is going to wrap up my presentation. Obviously, this has been an audio interpretation on the fly, so I hope it was okay. When we release this, we'll release it with some slides, and I believe it will really bring it together for you guys. But yeah, I wanted to do that. Joshy, Quest, Cryptoid, how'd you feel?
Yes,
Did it make sense, and do you have any questions?
yeah. So I'll probably just speak it out loud. So PID controllers, you know, we use them. But I say we use them. They are used widely. So energy networks, for example, water companies, they're used daily, obviously for supply and demand of energy and water. You know, probably in the UK, some energy companies will basically use that data. I think they're called Kalman filters, if I'm not mistaken, to basically analyze that data. They had an incentive, you know, when we had the energy shortage in the UK last year or the year before, where they would incentivize people to switch off their electric. And it was just it was similar to what he was saying about, you know, the negative interest rate. And, you know, these PID controls are a perfect opportunity. And whether we need to look at some kind of advanced neural network to be able to enhance that, to, you know, to continuously update and look at the market, look at the data sets to predict what that interest rate needs to be set for the perfect stable coin. You know, the tools are out there. They just need that little extra bit of tweak to be built on blockchain. You know, I'll have a look at Rye now. It's the first time I've heard of it, but it's definitely something to look into and see what they're doing. But no, thank you for for sharing the presentation. I've already heard it previously, but it was interesting to hear it again, a different perspective. So thank you.
Yeah, no, that's no problem. But yeah, I agree. With regards to like a PID controller and actually the setting of a target price, so all we need really is we need the price on the on-chain price of the reserve asset. So in this instance, it would be an on-chain place to draw the price of DERO itself. There would also be a market for the stable coin that's produced off of it. So we'd have that price, and then we'd have the error rate. So the deviation from the target price. And then using these data points, you can actually create a full, the ones that are implemented currently, I think they've left off the derivative term. So they're actually PI controllers, because for like a PID controller, it really depends on the thing you're trying to control for what you actually need. And generally, you don't need the derivative term because it tries to predict future prices, and that it actually opens up an attack vector. But yeah, so No, it's really brilliant what you say about PID control, because with the very few data points, we can actually kind of set one up to set a target price for an unpegged floating currency backed by a hard asset like DERO. Like that is just mind blowing, honestly.
And I don't mean to assume, but from all the subjects you always touch on, I'm sure you're aware of how like the IMF does like SDRs, right? With like a basket of currencies. Yeah. So on the other side of that too, to increase stability, there may actually be some opportunity to not only balance a token that works like this against just one asset, but multiple assets, that lowers the attack vectors as well. Like as we saw, like Haven had some issues with their peg before. But if you have to target multiple cryptocurrencies at the same time in order to make something move for the arbitrage to go in your favor and then exploit that, that might be something that could be interesting to consider too.
Yeah, so there's actually two sides to this crypto. It is a really interesting point you brought up because, obviously everything I'm presented here is with the idea of it being on chain, well, in smart contracts or using.
Of course.
But yes, because the one side to that is you're distributing the actual reserve assets, therefore, making the attack vector a bit smaller for manipulation of the reserve asset price. But at the same point, I suppose the other side of that is you'd then be introducing a bit of trust in these instances, it would be bridging over different assets onto the DERO blockchain.
Right.
But I think there's a middle ground there where,
or you could just have two different tokens. I mean,
Yeah, well, I suppose the idea of the reserve asset is that's kind of where the value comes from for the currency. So effectively, because DERO is the blockchain, the only actual asset there effectively is DERO.
Right.
Everything would stem off of DERO. So in this idea, obviously, if we're talking purely on chain in this closed system, the market cap or the supply, the amount of this currency that we're theorizing to create would never actually be anywhere near the market cap of DERO itself, because obviously
that's true.
That's
true. That reduces the attack surface in its own way greatly. So I understand. Okay, that's a good point.
It's just a give and take, really.
Yeah.
Are you effectively then saying that DERO, I know you mentioned you got the currency and then you've got the money, you're effectively saying that DERO is the money and then the DERO token is the currency?
Yes. That's pretty much how I'm defining it. And through my own sort of studies, making this presentation, it is very ambiguous talking about money and currency, but that's how I'm defining it here is kind of money is the thing given in, currency is the thing brought out, to actually get a strong line, a strong definition there, but all in the context of central banking and just this basic mechanism of loans. Give something in, get a loan out, interest rate on the loan. That interest rate is controlled up or down to make you either take more loan or bring back the loan.
Yeah, and quite literally, people don't understand that like the Fed doesn't go burr, essentially. The Fed controls interest rates and then money's created via loans. A lot of people don't understand that kind of mechanic that's in fiat system.
Yeah. So,
I mean, there's other things with treasuries and things like that, but that's the main point of it, is that banks kind of create money through loans, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then what's you touched on it right there, the treasury. What's the thing they're taking in to create money? Well, it's something that the treasury just created.
Yeah. that's a whole different can of worms.
This is the fiat Ponzi that we refer to, though, you guys. Like, this is where it used to be gold, it's now a treasury bill. Well, who made the treasury bill? Well, the treasury did. They printed it, and then they just take it over to the Federal Reserve and say, "Hey, you give me some currency," and they're like, "Okay." Whereas that used to be gold.
You have to look at Zimbabwe and look at the actual size of the notes. I think it's Zimbabwe. Apologies if that's incorrect, but
yeah,
I'm sure it's like $500 trillion notes. And that's just literally what happens when the money printer starts rolling. It's when there's nothing to back it against, and it's crazy to think that they continued it after the Bretton Woods Agreement, because it was pegged to the value. So now it's almost like it's pegged to nothing. They can just keep printing and printing and printing, and eventually it's going to collapse. well, eventually it'll explode from growth, but not in growth in a good way.
Well, you make a really good point because you talk about this and it always comes to an inflection point in these fiat currencies where they have to make a decision. And we're kind of in that now, you either continue to raise interest rates, which will just collapse and destroy everything and everyone, or
You print.
you continue to print.
Yeah. And guess which one? Guess which one governments always pick? Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Every single time, I'm going to choose hyperinflation and printing because that is a soft landing, right? So when you hear them say soft landing, what they mean is hyperinflation because that's a bit softer than a complete and total implosion and collapse of everyone and everything. It's a bit softer to kind of draw it out over a few years and just do this thing that's slowly called hyperinflation, but people don't even realize it's hyperinflation until 10 years into it.
Question is though, what does the bank make more money off? Printing money, then selling that, or increasing the interest rate?
They make money both ways, technically. I mean, because
do they really care about money?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, the banks own assets, and your debt, your debt is also their asset. So if inflation goes up, you have to take out more debt, which increases their asset, right? It's your liability, it's their asset. So that's what they have on their books as their money, essentially. So it doesn't really matter to the bank.
Yeah, it's effectively the same system, just in multiple loops everywhere. You everything's backed by something somewhere, and it turns out that if the banks want to try and swap their paper fiat currency for your house, if they want to swap their fake thing for your real thing, is that. And you could maybe make the point that is the ultimate aim to all of this, to take the tangible from the people and give them the paper and then leave them with the hyperinflation.
Well, a lot of people say that inflation is an invisible tax. And that's essentially exactly what it is. It's a way for governments to spend money they don't have and take away what you do have.
Yes. Inflation is the negative interest rate, right? It's the tax on the holder.
Right.
Yeah, that's such a great point, but that's how negative interest rates is implemented today. It's just that they don't tell you and no one understands it and no one knows. But the inflation they're printing is your negative interest rate. They're taking value out of your pocket by continuing to create the thing out of thin air. That's how you implement a negative interest.
Yeah, that's how the fiat system does it. Yeah.
Yeah, so such a great point because that is... They do implement a negative interest rate on you guys, on all of your money in the bank and all your money in your pocket and all your money under the mattress. They're implementing it right now, every day, every year that goes past. It's just that they don't tell you the interest rates are 5%.
One more thing I'd like to add too is when the United States during the COVID crisis first started printing a bunch of money, everybody, there was a concerns for hyperinflation, but it seemed that everyone was like, so where's this hyperinflation? I don't see it happening. And then here we are 4 years later, and the price of food is doubled and tripled. But people still don't equate that to the big bang that happened 4 years ago. So these types of things are slow burns too. People don't seem to catch that either.
Yeah, exactly.
So you could quite literally, like you were saying, be in a hyperinflation and not know it until basically it's too late.
Well, thank gosh for all of you lot, because you bring me sanity. You bring me hope that
I suppose one question that's just going through my head at the moment. So we know how we can incentivize negative interest rates. So we know the banks increase interest rates to get people to save money, stop them spending. With a stable coin, how do you incentivize saving as much as you would? I'm trying to phrase this better. So at the minute the interest rates are 6% in the UK. So that's what massive incentive to save money. They've been at 0.5% for the last 10 years. So there's a huge incentive to stop people spending.
Right, yeah. So effectively what they're trying to do with that is they're trying to reduce supply on the open market, therefore increasing the price. Because basically what's happening right now is these fiat currencies are collapsing, but the only way you know that they're collapsing is by referencing them against another fiat currency, which is another point which should have gone into, is the concept of reference. You can't actually put a price on anything unless you reference against something else.
Well, another thing too is part of the reason for interest rate hikes isn't necessarily to stop spending; it's to stop borrowing. Borrowing is what creates more currency, and when they try to slow down the creation of money because they spent it somewhere else or whatever the reason is, when they raise interest rates, it does stop spending, but it basically slows down spending via borrowing. So it slows down real estate purchases, it slows down car purchases, and it slows down these loans that banks make because people can't afford the payments. So they're not incentivized to take out the loan. So when they don't take out the loan, the money's not created.
There we go. So, and then we term that in supply. They're stopping or reducing supply. They're slowing down the amount of new supply of money that's coming in via loans by raising the interest rate to make you hold on to your money and do not put it on the open market, therefore putting downward pressure on the price because we're already collapsing. That's why the interest rates are actually going up, because fiat currencies prices are actually going down.
Taking that back then to the negative interest rates and lending. So there's obviously an incentive to pay a loan back if you go into a negative interest rate, but there's also an incentive there to borrow with a negative interest rate.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, with negative interest rates, it's free money basically.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So I suppose probably more of an open question. I don't really know if you have the answers, but if we're in a negative interest rate and you're trying to incentivize people who have got loans to pay that back, how do you then slow down the people who wanted to borrow that money as well? What's the sort of counterweight?
Well, usually if interest rates go negative or essentially negative, there's a big problem already happening. So in a situation where interest rates go negative, I mean, the proverbial shit has already hit the fan. So, yeah. So I understand your question, but I'm just saying in that situation, you have bigger problems anyway.
So I suppose at that point, you would be thinking, I'm going to keep hold of my money because it's safer with me.
Well, yeah. In negative interest rate environment, if you had money in the bank, they would be taking from your balance.
Right. So, which then would incent. So the negative interest rate comes from the holder of the currency's perspective, right? Because when you're talking about interest rates, you can either talk about the people taking the loans, you can talk about the people holding the thing. So yeah, like when the negative interest rate, they're taking money from you, your bank account, or you basically, and it's making you want to sell it. Was that the point of your question, Joshy? Or I feel like it was on the loaners.
Yeah. So I suppose that makes sense. So when it's a negative interest rate, you almost want to shift that currency, money, coin, whatever you want to call it. You know, obviously, if it's in a negative interest rate and it's free money, would we effectively stop the lending at that point if there was a lending system in place on the DERO blockchain?
You'd actually, in this instance, you'd be incentivizing lending. You're trying to increase supply. So in a negative interest rate zone, generally it's the price of the thing is actually going up, right? So it's actually going in an uncontrolled rate upwards, kind of right, like the US dollar did, because when everyone else is flagging, they dive into the safe asset. That causes demand to spike. And then you get that thing where the US dollar just kept going up and up and up and up because everyone's collapsing and everyone's going into the US dollar because that's safe. So in that instance, you're trying to actually incentivize loans. So as the gap keeps going up, basically you're trying to loan as the price is higher and then boom, immediately sell it on the open market for that price, knowing that they're keeping this negative interest rate and it's going to come back down. And then you just rebuy back in when it comes back down, when the incentive of the interest rate is high enough to cause that. It's really tough talking about this stuff without visual kind of
visual aids. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose a good way of describing it would be, so I take a loan at the interest rate at 6%. It's an incentive for me to pay that back when we're in a negative interest rate, but then it's also an incentive for somebody else to take that loan out in a negative interest rate for when it goes back into a positive interest rate to then sell it at that point to balance the books out. So you've continuously got this balance in motion.
Yeah, exactly. But
all just arbitrage and incentive.
But there's also two effects that interest rates have on the people who hold currencies and people who borrow currencies. So a negative interest rate, if you have money in the bank, they will take money from you. But if you want to take out a loan, you could technically get money back, right? So when you're borrowing money, negative interest rates are good. If you're trying to hold on to your money, negative interest rates are bad, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So and that's another problem with fiat too, is because and a debt-based system is because negative interest rates can be good in one way, and then they can be bad in another way. It just depends on how you're using the currency. And notice I didn't say money, I said currency.
I suppose we see that today with, if you look at the DERO Bitcoin pair on exchanges, you see Bitcoin value start to rise. You see a lot of people selling DERO. So I suppose in a way, it's a similar sort of mechanism when you look at trading. But again, like you say, it's just an arbitrage, isn't it? So,
yeah, and you can also just look at there's an altcoin index, and you'll see that pretty much the entire altcoin market does that. And the reason for that is because of people's mental peg to the US dollar. So when people see something going down in dollar value, or something like Bitcoin's going up in dollar value, instead of just keeping their money in the altcoin, it would go up with if nobody moved. But people see that other thing going up, so they dump the altcoin, they jump into Bitcoin. And that's why you see the Bitcoin pair go down. Usually when Bitcoin's pumping, altcoins don't normally go right with it, because those people are they're mentally pegged to the dollar, not the Bitcoin pair.
Yep, there you go. But yeah, so, they're basically, Josh, they're just pure incentive loops to try and, that's how simple it really is. It's just incentive loops to try and keep control of something. So we're talking about central banking. They're trying to incentivize and control the supply to keep the price of a thing, air quotes, stable or less volatile than a reference.
And I suppose with it being on chain and no central authority, and there's no bankers looking for bonuses, it's a lot less susceptible to manipulation.
Yeah. So it kind of as crypto, it would just be the traditional kind of ways that a stable coin is. The manipulation is kind of the incentive, almost like that's these kind of feedback loops that you try and get into. But yeah, like as crypto had said, like the attack vector for one of these decentralized automated stable coins is probably the actual attacking the price of the reserve asset itself for whatever you're, whatever you're trying to do. But it would work out. I'm not going to go too deep, but those attack vectors, you kind of try and work into, they're also the incentive, because the more price deviation you create, just the more arbitrage you're creating for someone else.
Right.
And you hit that tipping point at one point where someone out there says, fuck this, I'll take that percentage, and that's basically how all this works. That's why I kind of said, like, this is the way to actually have a true open free market.
And I would say the solution that you're putting forward with it doesn't apply as much to what I said earlier after I started to consider some of the other things that you said. So in some of the more basic algorithmic stable coins that have been out there, that was a huge issue, but I see a little bit more clearly now what you're saying with it's not quite the same because there's already some built-in incentive. So that feedback loop kind of keeps it even more stable right off the bat. If that makes sense of me reiterating your own words back to you.
But yeah, so it's me, you guys.
All right. So I guess we've been going for a while now. If you feel like this is a comfortable stopping point, I guess you can wrap it up, or if you want to take more questions from people, or however you want to go.
No, we've gone quite a long time, you guys. I hope that was productive for some of you. I do realize it was a bit long, but I was trying to shoehorn, an entire presentation from in person into an audio thing. And I do believe that we touched on, even if you don't really care so much about the bigger picture of stable coins and kind of getting all this stuff trustless and on chain and all of that, I hope that for all of you, we at least touched on some kind of concept along that road that, all of you could have, taken something home, because more complex ideas like stable coins, they're pulling together ideas and concepts from a wide range. We touched on control theory, we touched on money, we touched on, supply and demand. Like there's so many things to kind of, incentive, arbitrage. There's so many things to kind of take in for all of this. And these are really complex protocols to try and do. Yeah, I hope there was something in there for all of you. I'm going to call this ZeroPoint now. This has been ZeroPoint Module 11. Thank you all for joining us. And that's it from me, your guest host for the day, the Objective Alpha. Take care, everyone. I'm signing out.
Take care. Thanks.